Monica Bermudez is a heart-centered spiritual coach, star goddess, portal activator, author, and energy healer, known for her work through sacred heart awakenings. She guides clients on transformational journeys of emotional healing and divine connection, with a particular focus on helping empathic women and high-achieving professionals reclaim their inner power and authenticity. Monica integrates quantum energy healing, intuitive insight, and ancient wisdom to support clients navigating grief, heartbreak, and emotional blocks. Her own life experiences, including the loss of loved ones, a personal awakening, form the compassionate foundation of her work. She speaks passionately about sacred feminine energy, soul embodiment, and living from the heart with spiritual integrity. Gosh, what a beautiful introduction. And I'll put lots of links into the notes because Monica's website and her podcast are fabulous resources. So I'll definitely direct you there. But please stay with us for now while I learn more about Monica and the amazing person she is. So I almost don't know where to start. So I'll fall back on something I'm comfortable with. So if I can take you back a little bit, what were your teenage formative years like? What do we need to understand about who you were then to understand who you are today?
Yeah, so thank you for having me on your podcast. It's such an honor to be here with all of you. And when I remember my teenage years, actually, there was a lot of questions that I had because I really felt different and out of place. Like I really didn't fit with a lot of the other norms and the people. I didn't really feel human. I felt very disconnected to the human, and it took me a while sometimes to like really learn stuff. And at oftentimes I would spend more like on depression, I would say, because I didn't really fit in.
Mm,
Um, and of course I would have like all these like visions and experience and all these other things, and started seeing things. And that's when I started to see is like I don't know what I am. Like there's something that is like emerging that maybe I should start exploring more about myself.
mhm,
But I just continue like living on my human experience. um, but learning through the school systems, because that's the way societal norms was. You have to get an education, go to school, and get a job, like an actual real job. But that's really for me, like that's how I remember my teenage years, that it wasn't a time that I really felt so comfortable. I felt more depression than anything. Yeah.
and when did you start to feel light manifesting in you? When were you first able to almost put a name to what you came to develop?
So I also like, in as my background upbringing, I was in a school of mysticism. So I started to learn that. For me, gave me a lot more
Mhm,
passion and love for life, because then I started to understand it's like there's a reason why I feel so drawn to psychic abilities and like all these other like supernatural things that we call like extraordinary or out of the ordinary. And so I felt really drawn to like developing those skills more in myself and really working on myself more, like a personal development, in other
mhm,
words. And but just really diving in deep to not just like the physical body and our glands and our endocrine system, because all of that is a physical, serves as a physical purpose, but they also have a lot to do with the our psychic abilities. Let's just say our intuition. And so there's more to that than meets the eyes from the physical form.
mm,
And so a lot more scientists are starting to wake up now to this and finding the evidence. So they're connecting the dots, connecting the dots to mysticism and spirituality. I mean, even when I was doing like meditation, when I started, because I've been doing meditation since I was little, so that also really helped me a lot as a tool, to help me to really stay focused on my determination for, some personal development and getting to know myself more. And also like being focused on developing more of my, psychic abilities and intuition, and trusting that, in some way. And so even then, when I was growing up with meditation, there were some scientists that were starting to come out with some information on, evidence that they're finding with meditation. Like they would do studies on monks,
yeah.
who always
Yeah.
spend all day meditating, and they would find that their brain was very differently wired compared to like others who don't meditate as much. So, um, so that's when scientists were first starting to come out with some of their own evidence, and now it's just really expanded even more. Like in the current times now that we're in, it's growing exponentially for like all the stuff that they're finding and pulling out. um yeah, there's even like a documentary that I was watching on, I think, I can't remember if it was like Amazon Prime or something like that, where they're talking about the superhuman, and they're talking about like doing studies on people who do like remote viewing. And so they did like several studies on that, like people will be in a different location and really remote viewing what the other was doing. And so they would capture that as evidence, and they would be accurate. So we all have the ability in us. So yeah, I love how things are coming together now.
It's amazing.
It just feels like money is normal now.
Mm. It's taken a long time. Like I say, things that you've known for many years, science is only starting to trust now. So I did Reiki training about 50 years ago,
Mm,
and got the sort of master practitioner and things, and loved it. And now in the
yeah,
UK, some health authorities have Reiki as part of a what do you call it, established healing pattern. Whereas 15 years ago, it was now, how can you possibly hold your hands, or even like I say, how can you use Reiki remotely or things? It was, yeah. But now they're starting to recognise that there's something in there that they can't necessarily understand. They just know it makes a difference. Um,
yeah. It's a norm now. It's become a household norm, to ask for like Reiki or like energy support. So yeah, because people are starting to. It's not just the science coming out with the evidence, but a lot of people are starting to wake up to that remembrance, I would say,
hmm.
because it's really already like anchored or engraved in our soul of remembrance. So there's an aspect of us that knows this already, and so for me, it's just a remembrance of like what's coming up. It feels familiar.
Yeah, we seem to be seeing lots of things, like whether it be plant medicines or different mushrooms or ayahuasca,
Mhm.
lots of different things that lots of very, very intelligent scientists have known about for millennia. And suddenly we're like, hey, maybe there's something in this. It's like, my goodness,
Mhm.
these societies have been doing
Yeah.
it for so long. And I think one of the challenges has been is that if big pharmaceuticals can't make money out of it, they try and push it to one side. Whereas a lot of these things that are very natural and exist for us, yeah, they've been sort of almost, pushed to one side and mocked and ridiculed. And now finally people are saying, well, no, actually, there's something in this. It's, yeah, which is finally, it's good to see. There's a long way to go, but it does good to see that there is that sort of slight change in people's attitudes. And as you say, I think a lot of it is that people recognizing signs, people recognizing something within themselves, whereas before they might have had the signs, might have had the sensation, but no, that's something else. None of this tingling in my hands. It's not energy. It's a cold, or it's yeah. Allowing us to
Definitely.
awaken, I guess, a little bit is where we are, I suppose.
Yeah, so like, so many people brushed it off
Hmm.
thinking that it doesn't fit the norm, what we hear.
Yeah,
Like it could be like through school, through like, our religious beliefs. So all of it, ties goes back to our beliefs, right? What are beliefs that we've been
yeah,
programmed growing up?
mm,
And a lot of the old programming was, beliefs on that you have to like go to school, go to work, get married, have children, and nothing else outside of that, is acceptable. Anything that you start talking about ancient civilization or psychic abilities or Reiki or like, it's not in the Bible. So why are we talking about this? Or why are we like it's not studied at school, so why are we talking about this? But those who are the outliers, because I consider myself to be an outlier, like if you look at the graph, right? If you look at the graphics for the society where everybody fits into what's supposedly supposed to be the norm of society's programming. You have these other dots outside that, graph, and those are the outliers. And I consider myself one of those outliers. And so, like, it's kind of like Divergent, right? Have you ever seen that movie,
Yes, yeah,
Divergent?
absolutely. Yeah.
It's so true, like from that aspect, how they use that analogy based on those books, where supposedly, you have to fit like these certain
Yeah.
norms of societal categories that they had during that time. And the people who were divergent, who were like didn't fit the norm of either one of those categories,
Mm,
so they could actually blend in, all of them, or just be like its own independent, like thinking outside the box type thing. And so they consider themselves to be divergent. So those who like were outside the divergent area, would would have this familiarity or this remembrance of things that weren't really exactly how society saw it, but there was more to us than what, we were being programmed with or told or fed,
absolutely.
in that moment. So we're
Society and
breaking that norm
yeah,
now.
society and politics doesn't trust what it can't control. And I think having
Mhm.
somebody with your abilities and your talent is something that people look at with maybe suspicion, fear. I mean, if you go back a few centuries in the UK, and they were particularly
Mhm.
women, they were burning women at the stake for claims of witchcraft. When
Mhm.
actually they were typically healers, and they were typically plant-based healers, but they were, because they were different and had something. They were of
Horrible. Mhm.
witchcraft and burnt, and it was typically women that were punished, and you don't see men
Mhm.
being punished for these things, but it was, yeah, men wanted to control women. I guess again is what it came back to.
Yeah.
Something you said, and Red, you said that your journey really kicked on in 2012 when you decided to end a marriage that was already dead, in your words. And I wonder what you could say about the person you were during your marriage and the person you became or allowed yourself to be after the marriage.
Yeah. So thank you for asking that question. So I mean, during the marriage, I really felt like I was constrained. Like I couldn't, like I was walking on eggshells. Like I really couldn't express who I
Yeah,
was truly, because every time I would share something that was, about mysticism or metaphysics, or like, these other like psychic abilities and those other stuff, or even share like visions, it just felt like I was being criticized or judged for being that way.
yeah,
And so I really didn't feel like I could be myself to fully express myself. And so I did feel like my wings were clipped in a way, so I really had to reconsider, like, do I want to continue living in a world that's not real for me, that is not, that feels like inauthentic, in other words, that I can't express myself. So, there was a lot of fear and doubt around going through a divorce, because there's this whole like perception of like shame,
yeah,
or like failure. And I was like, how can I fail like in a relationship when I've been so successful and everything else, right? And so there was this part of me that was feeling a bit shameful about that. But when I finally, had to like really, because the only decision that really comes from someone is themselves, right?
yeah,
Nobody else can really tell you what to do. You have to like be willing to do this. It takes a lot of courage to do that and really come face to face with it and really make that decision. So I finally made the decision that, it's not going to work out with us. So we came to an agreement about, just going through a divorce. But after the divorce, of course, I went into like a much deeper like depression at first. Um, and I really thought that I was pretty much done with everything. But instead of just like sitting at home by myself and dwelling on it, I just felt like this impulse just to be outside more so than anything. And so I spent more time outside, because before that I didn't spend as much time outside as I did like after.
hmm
So I started spending more time outside, like more hikes, like longer hikes for like 3 hours, on the mountain, in like forests, and just spending time with a lot of nature, sitting in trees and all this other stuff. And just being with myself and just really reflecting on so many things, and as well as meditating. And during that instant is when I started to really hear more of my guidance, because in a way I had kind of disconnected myself from it because I was kind of upset
Yeah.
with my guides for not telling me this
Don't get
marriage.
married. Don't get married.
So I was pretty upset. And so in a way, I didn't want to hear it from them. So I kind of like turned it off in a way. But as I spend more time in nature, that's when it started to kind of come in more, because I was allowing myself to receive.
Mhm.
See, I was being the vessel of reception. And when you're in nature, it just gradually allows that, relaxation and moment of time, so you can easily start to receive more messages. And so that's exactly what was happening. And I was getting messages of like doing something new and stepping more into like the public, and sharing more of the stuff that I'm doing right now. And so, of course, I was in denial and doubt. And I was like, there's no way. I didn't study for any of this. And like, it's not something I want to do, like, it's like I'm happy being behind the scenes, like a mystic, a closet mystic or whatever. But that wasn't, the guidance that I was getting. I think that was part of my soul contract that was, coming to
Yeah.
life, in other words.
And
So
how
yeah.
did it feel when you accepted the decision to create Sacred Heart Awakenings? Was there one moment of revelation, or was it a slow build up? So you thought, "No, I have to do this," because I guess fully embracing your heart feels like a huge shift from
Mm.
where you were before.
Yeah, so that was a building up, I would say, because initially, like I said, I was in doubt, of myself,
Mhm.
the guidance that I was getting.
Mm.
So I had to like really work. I started to really work on myself and find other tools, because I felt like meditation was one tool, but I really needed something much stronger. So I ended up finding someone else who was doing like light language channeling. And so, serving as a catalyst and going into subconscious. So initially, that's what I wanted, just to really break patterns in my subconscious that I wasn't fully aware exactly what it was, but I knew that I wanted to try something that was very potent and different. And I thought, why not? I'm just going to try it. So, like, as soon as I started trying it, really started shifting me in so many different ways. And that's when I started to get more clarity on my guidance and realizing some of the things that, my guides were warning me before, but I was ignoring them. So, that's when I got a lot of clarity from that. And so then I thought, I really got to polish my channel. I really got to polish my intuition and really step into, that soul trust of myself and who I am. And so part of that is really working through the shadows and the patterns that get in the way, right? The toxic
Mm.
ones. A lot of old beliefs with our ancestry, with, karmic. And so all of that I started to clean up so much started to open up other like channels inside of me and chambers of like remembrance. And that's when like new my light language started to resurface. And so then, later on, after I thought like I need help with someone helping me with blind spots, so I got like mentors. And that's how things kind of evolved into like stepping into the Sacred Heart. But before that, I really had like falling in love with myself. I really fell in love with myself, because the more that I was like really embodying and looking at my shadows and accepting what it was, that was coming up, that was already inside of me, as well as, that who I was at the light. I really just started, just one day I looked at myself in such a different way. Like I was looking at myself for the first time, like you would see someone when you fall in love, you know? And that's what the quantum self-love is. It's like really stepping into that, really embodying it. And so, in some of the sessions that I had with like mentors who were also intuitive and psychic, to help me with the blind spots, some of the messages they would get is like the return of the Sacred Heart. It's almost like the return of the Jedi,
Mm.
right?
How?
And so I didn't know, like, at the time, because I left religion a long time ago. I didn't realize that it had connections with religion, in a different
Mm.
way. And so when I, heard of the Sacred Heart, what the message that I was, getting is that the Sacred Heart is in all of us. It's not just, one avatar, or, ascended master, or cosmic master, you may call it, like Jeshua, as you see him in the pictures, but that's really in all of us. And so that's something that is like a Sacred Heart awakening, is when you have um when you put yourself together in wholeness, when you return back to yourself and you step into that self-love, and it's almost like a twin flame connection within, because you bring divine masculine and divine feminine together into a sacred union of marriage within that Sacred Heart
Hmm.
space. And so that is also where Divine Mother dwells, and so there is, so much to that, that is that reconnection back. And so what I found was that I have some very unique codes to really bring back the heart together for us, for like those who are seeking it. And that's where I've been working with clients on as well, to really help them reconnect themselves in that way. So yeah, but that's really like a more of a building up than anything to answer your question.
I love that, and I do think so few people love themselves. They might think they do, they might say they do, but I really do think a lot of people don't love themselves and don't allow themselves to.
Hmm.
Something I believe, and I think you'll accept this as well. I hope at least is that we carry the trauma of our generations from our ancestors, etc. Often without knowing it and without any knowledge of how to address it. And I just wondered if we have grief or trauma within us that's unresolved, how does that impact our capacity for intimacy and connection with another person?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it would feel like dirty, I would
Mhm.
say, shameful, and so it would definitely feel like there is that disconnection. But those are some indications, because for me, intimacy, I didn't realize this until like after divorce, but intimacy at first, before, it felt dirty, like almost guilty, with others. So to me, that was an indication of some trauma that I was feeling, and it was coming through my ancestry, like I know in my ancestry lineage there was a lot of rape, um, and so a lot of that was showing up, in the relationships that I had in a different way, because I really couldn't look at intimacy like, in a different way. Like it felt weird to me, like almost like it was dirty, and it's like, why do I feel like it's, shameful? Yeah.
And how did you break from that pattern with your ancestors?
Yeah, so part of it was really acknowledging first, that this is there,
Yeah.
but also like really confronting it, and making peace with it,
Hmm.
that I no longer have to live to this contract or this programming, and like really declaring it to yourself and making that proclamation of that, shift, that, you see it, but you don't conform to it anymore.
Hmm.
And so that's how you start, is really like emphasizing that to yourself, but putting emphasis on it, from your own willpower to do that, and then from there, of course, doing like other like energy work on it,
Yeah.
myself, to really just envision it. You can use, your power of your own imagination and envisioning, especially now, because things have really shifted so much since it was then. Back then took like years for me to like really, get that. But nowadays we're in this quantum space, so the timelines are very merged into the present. So you can rewrite those stories and really envision like a different outcome from whatever happened in the past life, if you're aware of it, right?
Yeah.
And change it to something else that makes you feel, much better. So really just making peace with that trauma.
Mm. And intimacy doesn't feel dirty anymore.
No, it feels great.
Good.
I mean, now it feels great. I mean, it's like, so that was me back then, like before the marriage and all this other stuff. After, the divorce, and everything like that, when I really cleaned myself and fell in love with myself, I looked at intimacy in a much better light, like it's a more embracing, and it's part of the norm, because honestly, it is like, for instance, sex has been distorted so much, through some of the societal, norms. Like
Yeah.
it's considered to be like, I don't know, it's just been
Yeah.
distorted. But the way, sexual energy is a really powerful um, part of
Mhm.
us, because it's also used for manifesting, like, and it's a creative force.
Mhm.
It's a creative force of energy, and that's why it's been distorted through time, by some of the leaders or the top, who have been programming us in a different way, or looking at things in a different way when it comes to like sex. But our sexual energy is so key to like so much of what we do now, like it's part of our creative force. It can be used for like creativity.
Mhm.
And so I feel like a lot of that has really expanded in me. So that's why I feel like a lot of what I, manifest has been like accelerated as well, since then. So yeah.
And I guess, isn't that what they say that the root chakra has the energy and supports physical, emotional well-being, and that's to do with sexual energy, I guess. So a lot of people, like I think, see sex as an act. Typically, penis and vagina, ejaculate. That's it, done. They don't see I guess the transfer of energy between people.
Mm.
But I guess
Oh,
you
there
know
is.
that mindset, I suppose.
There is a lot of transfer of energy when it comes to that, physical contact with someone when you're having sex. And it is impacted in the chakras area, and so I had to like heal a lot of my sacral area, the sacral chakra,
Hmm.
because there was a lot of mother wounds there,
Yeah.
a lot of, old trauma around that, sexual energy as well.
Mm.
But see, what happens is like when I start with the heart, I usually have the heart connect to all aspects of the chakras in our body. Um, and so there is that, because for me, the heart is the hub of everything. It's like the center point. And so in every major chakra and every part of our chakra already has like a heart center as well.
Hmm.
So it's like that's how they all interconnect. It's like its own network of communication within. It's like our own ecosystem. And so, yeah, so the root chakra, what you were talking about, is about stability, right? But it is interconnected to
Hmm.
the sacral chakra as well. And so that's why you may feel like, some of the instability when it comes to like intimacy, or
Mm.
like, relationship with other, if you're in a romantic relationship. Um, and so, but they all like serve their purpose of like, building that foundation, that stability, in yourself, and also like, paying attention to your sacral area, because men and women have this, right? But really, like women, have their womb space, right? And then have the other different, ways, but it's all still like, the same type of energy that's there for all of us. And so, we can harness this energy within. If we can get past the traumas, we become like an unstoppable force of like creative energy, creatrix, or creators, of many
Mm.
kind. And so that's why we've been in a way like sabotaged or inhibited, because of that power that we hold within ourselves when it comes to our sexual energy. So it's so key and so important right now that we realize, the potency that we hold within ourselves, and really step into that embodiment of who we are, and setting aside, like, getting through these old toxic belief systems that have been like holding us back from that potential,
Mm.
you know.
What role does divine feminine energy play in healing? Is that an important aspect of it?
Oh, it's a very important aspect, and it's an aspect that has been rising a lot lately, especially on Earth.
Hmm.
It's like the return of the divine feminine. It's like return of the Jedi, right? It's like it's a huge force of energy when it comes to like inclusion, and inclusion being that it includes everything and everyone, right? And it's rebuilding, or let's say like giving rebirthing
Yeah.
the masculine energy in a divine masculine way, you know. So like before, because we were in the age of Kali Yuga, if you know about those cycles. I just talked about it on one of my episodes on my podcast. But that was like an age of like the toxic masculinity. And it was like in all of us. Didn't matter if we were men or women, right? Even some women were displaying some of this, masculine, toxic masculinity. And, like it shows up as being really aggressive, and not having like being like not having any compassion or empathy for others, and not treating others as human. Um, and so now, when things are like with the divine feminine rising, which is rising on earth, but is also rising within us, most of all.
Hmm.
And so that in itself is kind of like bringing the toxic masculinity energy, and giving birth to like a new version of that masculine energy, which is the divine masculine, and bringing that union back together, because together they are a force of nature within ourselves. If we rebuild that within ourselves first, then that gets sent into the quantum field, which has that interconnectedness. It's like a rippling effect of energy, so that many others who are around you will also feel it and feel that shift, and you know also gravitate towards that as well, towards that shift. So the divine feminine energy does play a huge role when it comes to our healing, because it starts with really understanding, like seeing ourselves with compassion
Yeah.
also, right, acknowledging the things that have been happening or playing out in our lives, that haven't been pleasant, that have been uncomfortable. But yeah, so that's really, but she is, very, very powerful energy as well. So, yeah.
How do you find when clients find you and something guides them towards you and start to work with you? Do you find that people sometimes feel overwhelmed by the new sensations they're allowing themselves to experience? And how do you help people manage the sudden, the sudden connection with things that they haven't allowed themselves before?
Hmm. So, some time ago, I was working with a client, and I was really just helping her with her ancestral
Hmm.
wounds, and like helping her reconnect herself to her heart. And when I did that, her clear audience expanded. I don't know if you know what clear audience is, but to be able to hear what's the invisible, right? Like actually getting much more clear guidance, from like guides and everybody else. Like she was really hearing like all the ancestors, like really loud in her mind, and so it just became to be a lot.
Yeah.
So I had to help her readjust that, and really just learn how to like harness it herself, because it's really what I like to teach others, to really be empowered, be independent to yourself, because you already have the ability, to do it within yourself. So just helped her like get through that overwhelming part of like, what she was experiencing. So I thought it was just like it was fun, because to see that flourish and blossom in her, and it really tap into like her other abilities that she didn't really realize that she had that,
Mm.
strong connection. So yeah.
Do you ever get overwhelmed? Because you're so receptive and so in tune and so able that you would think that light beings and all the different people, all the different elements want to seek you out and want to sort of, hey, me, I'm here. So how
Mm,
do you almost, how do you protect yourself from
mm.
almost having to take everything on?
Yeah, so that's a great question because just recently, because where I live is a very hot vortex spot.
Mhm.
I'm in Manchester, so it is big, portals, and so there's always new energies coming in. And so I was feeling a bit like, cause I'm I harness a lot of cosmic energy
Yeah.
from like the universe and also like the energy from Tellus, the city that's underneath the
Mhm.
mountain. And so I was recently feeling a bit overwhelmed. So my whole system went through like a reset, I would say, because we are kind of like machines in a way,
Yeah.
but uh, in a different way. And so I had to like go through my own reset. And part of it was just spending time in nature. That's how I keep myself balanced and grounding myself, like actually trying to put my feet on the ground.
Mm.
Um, and also, and here's a practice that I do that I also suggest for others when it comes to protection is to always call on your own guides and angels, because I do have a lot of angelic support, and we all do actually. There's our guardian angels first of all, right? And just ask for that extra like protection of energy. And then you can also ask if you're open to it. A lot of angels do work with the dragons too, like the good dragons. And so you can ask for that extra protection through the dragon energy as well. So that's what I do is constantly, like every morning when I start the day, is say, thank you, angels, for keeping me protected 24/7 in all aspects, of myself. So in other words, whether that be physical energy and all dimensions, um, and so that's I feel it right away. I feel their energy right away. It's like almost like they're coming in for a tune up or something like that.
Yeah.
So that keeps the energies at bay. Also, like being focused on like narrow down. Like if there's a new energy that wants to get my attention, at least it's more focused.
Mm.
And so, really working with the angelic energy also like helps with that focus and not feeling so overwhelmed and also staying like protected as well. Yeah.
One of the things I sometimes see, and it worries me, I think, is often see now on Instagram or TikTok, it'll be like, I don't know, a 10-day course in opening your light being and becoming a goddess, etc. And I sometimes worry that without the proper people, without somebody like you that fully understands, can people leave themselves open to, is there such thing as
Yeah.
negative energy or dark energy that they perhaps just aren't, yeah, they get themselves in a very dangerous place?
Yeah. No, that's a great comment and question. But it's true. You have to be extra discerning, extra cautious,
Mhm.
these days because there's just so much in chaos.
Yes.
And so as you start to open up your channel and open up your, other abilities and your chakras and all that, just always use that protection and keep that in mind to shield yourself with, and some of the other methods I use is envisioning the white light, being surrounded, yourself, even your home, and just keeping that channel protected at all times. Like I do work a lot with Archangel Michael as well because Archangel Michael is about purpose, but he's also very protective. And so, as you're opening up those channels and opening up your chakras, ask Archangel Michael to be there, to be the guardian and the protector as well. The other part of it is to like being very discerning from your heart to really tap into what being is coming through, because some of them can be tricksters, like if somebody is like very clairvoyant and they see like some being that looks very beautiful and like all decorated and everything, right? It's made of light and all this other stuff, but really tap into the feeling of the energy. How does the energy feel? That's the part of the clairsentient.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't feel pleasant, that means that it's not really what it is that you're looking at. It's something that's in disguise. So I would be very, cautious with that when it comes to like, channeling certain like beings and like really emphasizing extra protection.
Mm.
And I feel like so many right now are going to start opening up more to their channels. So that's why I want to emphasize so much of the protection, methods in us to really keep yourself protected, because there's also been like a lot of psychic attacks as well. And I hear it from so many others who are, channeling. So that's why it's also good to get reinforcement on the extra support from those,
Definitely.
yeah.
It's hard, isn't it? Because in so many ways, it's so wonderful that people do want to explore different dimensions and the quantum and to understand who they are in a different way, which is so wonderful. But because our society has focused us all on the shortcut and the quick fix and the $19 and eat all you can type of thing, it's like, gosh, you just want people to be safe, don't you? Really, you want to encourage
Yeah.
this so much, but you just want people to recognize that it's not something to play with. It's such an
Mm,
amazing power, but with amazing power, amazing responsibility, etc. So
yeah.
yeah. So are you finding just more and more people are coming to you wanting to, I guess, understand is the key word. People just want to understand what there is beyond the physical body that we can sort of touch and see.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm getting more people coming up to me for that, reason. They feel like there's something in them that wants to
Yeah.
emerge, that's something new. And to me, that is like a soul calling,
Mhm.
that's coming through the heart, because the heart is the gateway to the soul. And so there is this inner restlessness, that something wants to emerge
Yeah.
and be seen and heard. And so it's to me like part of like soul purpose, like uh, shifting into your true nature of
Mhm.
who you are at the soul level, stepping into the authenticity, but still having these doubts and fears of like
Mm.
not knowing if that's really what you're feeling or hearing, which is like what happened to me after the divorce, right?
Yeah.
It's like I don't know, like if this is like real that I'm getting this message to step into public when I'm comfortable being behind the scenes, right? My closet mysticism. I don't want to feel like be in the public, but yeah. So I had to like really overcome a lot of stage fright and all this other stuff. And a lot of people come to me. It's not necessarily that they want to be like in public, but just more like feeling want to tap into their purpose, and really just get a sense of that. And so purpose is not something that you find. It's really already inside of you. It's just
Yeah.
being here in life is a big purpose, because we're all serving a role right now
Yeah.
with everything that is shifting around us, as we see around the world,
Mm.
so many things like coming up all at once.
Yeah. And I have a real sensation that if when people experience pleasure in whatever form, not necessarily sexual, but just the pleasure of walking outside in bare feet, or the pleasure of hearing the sea crash onto the stones or whatever. I think well, anytime we experience pleasure, I do think we're putting out positive energy into the universe. And I think when we're experiencing obviously the converse, then we may be taking energy away. But I have a view that at the moment we are in a human form, and
Yeah.
but we are ultimately is light, and that's what we are. And then as we pass from this body to something else, the light just continues, but in a different form. And a lot of people just think that's nonsense. But I really do that we have roles to play in this life, but then we'll have more roles to play in future lives. But I think it just comes down to, like you said, you almost you almost try to resist your calling and say, no, I'll stay in the background. But I think ultimately you thought, well, okay, next it just has to be you, really. And something you talk about, you talked about it then, was the importance of the heart's intelligence. And it's funny because we often say, are you using your head to make the decision or your heart to make the decision? Almost like the heart is somehow weaker, but I think the heart has this encouraged intelligence. And I just wondered if you could share a little bit from your book about what your book explores, so cracking the sacred heart code. How does that help people recognize intelligence of their heart?
So the book itself, Cracking the Sacred Heart Code, is to really emphasize the heart and really start tapping into your heart as a daily practice.
Yeah.
It's not just a one time. But the book itself offers like practical guidance, tools and methods for doing that same, doing that as a daily routine and a practice in your life. And that includes like specific meditations and as well as specific proclamations and declarations. And it's designed to be like an alchemical formula for that, to really start from like the beginning of like, fermentation in the way, and leading up to the outcome, which is the union, the sacred union of the heart. Um, and so, you may be tapping into the heart as an emphasis at first, but what it's doing is that it's also interconnecting with like everything else in your body. It's already like everything's coming into the heart, and you're feeling that reconnection back to yourself.
Hmm.
And as part of that reconnection, there is a remembrance. So your heart will have a message, the instant that you start tapping in. So like even if like now just doing like a small exercise, right? If we were to ask everybody to really tap into their heart and take a few minutes, right, to really tune in and hear what the heart has to say to you,
Hmm.
it will speak to you. And so that is, how you start, and doing it little by little and going bigger and bigger, making it part of your habitual like new
Hmm.
routines in your, daily life. um and so yeah, because like, and actually like every chakra has they're like your own guides as well. So think of it this way, like your chakras are part of your guidance, and your heart is one of those big guidance as well. It's a huge gateway to your soul, and that is how you're receiving those messages, which is part of your intuition, and getting that clarity and confidence within, to really tap. And the more you do that, of course, the confidence builds up, and you start to like really blend into the magic of the synchronicity, and getting, things realign themselves like naturally.
Hmm.
You start to see certain synchronicities around your life, like you walk somewhere, right, and you run into someone that you're having this, a desire or some kind of, and somebody else comes into your life and they start talking to you about the things that you're already feeling.
Yeah,
So that's not a coincidence. That's part of the synchronicity.
it's very beautiful.
Yeah. So, mhm.
Something you talked about quite a few times, and I'm so glad you did, is nature. And I think we've had this very odd thing where we've often thought of we have nature and then we have people, almost like two separate things. And I've realized, thankfully, that we are nature. Everything that exists is created from the same source, and I think our connection with nature is so much more powerful than we could ever hope to understand. And it does feel that people are starting to recognize space,
Mm,
nature, walking on the grass in bare feet, breathing in the air, being with the trees, and just how connected everything is. And is it what role does nature play in truly understanding our authentic selves?
good question. So nature is us, is a part of
Yeah.
us, and we're a part of nature. So it all, for me, is part of the bigger picture of the authenticity of like divinity, that we are, because nature is also part of divinity. And so there is that interconnectedness that comes through the quantum field, through the energy and the rippling effect. So think of like the movie Avatar, where, they are in a different planet, and they have tails, right, that connect straight into the plants and the trees and the animals, right? And that's how they communicate with one another, is having that energetic connection in that way. Except that, in that movie you had to tell the physically, connected. But honestly, through the energy that we are all in our consciousness, that we are all connected in that way. And so it is time for us to recognize it in this way, that we have never really been separated. We've always been, united in this way through the energy and our consciousness. And so that's where we're starting to step more into that remembrance of that, connection. And so scientists, are finding that, for instance, that grounding, the effects of grounding that it has on our body,
Yeah.
not only for stress management, but also physical issues, like diseases and those other stuff, is caused by the fact that we were disconnected from nature.
Mm.
But when it comes to more grounding, it's finding that people are starting to become healthier in a way, so a lot more of medicine, a lot more of the wellness, products out there, that I'm starting to see some products, are really blending in, bringing in more of nature, like stepping out of like using too much chemical and all this other stuff. And so that's what, scientists are finding with this grounding. And if you think about it, right, think about like even like for animals too, because it does impact them. That's why they need to be like outside as well, because they're also grounding with nature too.
Yeah.
So if you have your pets, right, have you had like, a dog or a cat who may get sick or something? But think about like the wild cats that are out there. Do you ever hear cases of them having like diseases?
No.
Well, probably not, because they're always outside in the ground, with their bare feet.
Yeah.
And so I feel, and that's what scientists, are saying, that are finding that grounding is the key to us also staying healthy and managing our
Mm.
stress, in different ways, or even like feeling like overwhelmed or having anxiety attacks. So all of those things does get rebalanced, I would say, through our connection back to nature. So I know that sometimes we can't place our feet, on the ground often, like when it's cold or something like that. But there's, other ways as well to use through our like, even just like sitting in a meditation and just envisioning our feet, our bare feet on the ground, you're already receiving. And so that's something else that scientists are also finding, is that when you really trick your mind in a way, I would say it's like manipulating energy, but in a good way,
Mm.
to really say that your feet are really on the ground, you're already receiving those benefits too.
Mm.
So, yeah.
That's beautifully explained. Yeah, I just I can literally feel if I get out in the morning and go out for a walk and just yeah, just have some sort of silence apart from what I hear in nature, and I'm around the trees and things. I feel so different throughout my day than if for some reason I have an early meeting and I have to go. It just feels different, and I think everybody, if they thought about that, they would think, yeah, that's the same for me, really. But I think people just ignore it sometimes. But I do think, yeah, just taking that small, it can be a small amount of time. It really does change how the rest of the day manifests. Really,
Mhm.
really,
Oh, big time. Yeah. Yeah, especially like now, like we're having a lot of solar flares. The sun is really active.
yeah.
Um, and so is the Schumann resonance spikes that are going on, which is the heartbeat of Earth.
Hmm.
But it's all interconnected to this solar flare as well, because it's electromagnetic energy that is hitting us, and hitting Earth, but also us, because we are electromagnetic field of energy. And so all of that, it's a scientific term, but really it's our spiritual consciousness is what it is, um, which is electrifying, energy. And so it does feel like a bit overwhelmed sometimes, and sometimes we could feel a little foggy, or like, or unfocused sometimes. So when you start to feel like really unfocused, that's when it's time to really go outside and maybe try to place your feet on the ground. That's the fastest way, right?
Hmm.
Is to put your bare feet on the ground
Yeah.
and just really spend some time to really, ground yourself in that way.
Yeah, a lot of people literally never ever have bare feet. They never ever do that, which is
Well, think about it, because society was built on just sitting in an office all day
unbelievable.
working, you know?
I know. Well, who on earth ever thought that's what we're on this planet for? It's like, yeah, right. So you're gonna like say you're gonna be born,
Yeah,
you
that's, I
go
mean,
to
people
school,
are,
get married, have children, go and sit in an office, work.
things were distorted and twisted. It's like we're not even like, some offices don't have enough sunlight. We need some of that sun energy. It's just like, Superman says it all the time. He gets his power through the sun, right? We get our power through the sun. So that means that we're superhuman.
Mm. My first office, I was so excited to get my own office. My first office had no windows at all. It was just four walls with no windows at all. A
Oh
light
God.
and yeah. But no,
Yeah,
there's
I
more and
was.
more research, and it's not, and it sort of shows that they sort of say we have a shortage of vitamin D, but it's saying it's not even vitamin D in supplement form. It's basically spending time in the sun. Spending time in the
Mm-hmm.
sunshine, in the
Yeah.
daylight, has such a different impact on us than taking a
Oh,
vitamin or a
big.
supplement, whatever. It's very, very different. And I think again, scientists are starting to realize that now. I think, oh, this is one of the biggest. It's one of the biggest indicators for dementia is not spending enough time in the sun, not vitamin
Hmm.
D,
Yeah,
just in the
exactly.
sun. So they say, there's different countries with different rates of sunshine. It's so clear, but wow, it's taken us a long time to figure these things out that seem fairly basic when you think about them. What I
Yeah.
just wanted to touch a little bit on intimacy and pleasure because I think we perhaps grab the word sex as what it's all about, and I think sex has very clear connotations of what it is. But I think pleasure and intimacy is such a different thing. I mean, I think it's incredibly pleasurable, intimate to if you look in your partner's eyes for 2 minutes. How intimate is that? I mean, it's extraordinary.
Hmm.
If you like it, if somebody brushes your hair or gives you a massage or holds your hand or whatever, those are almost incredibly intimate and pleasurable activities that almost bypass sex in a way. And I just wonder whether intimacy is rooted in our self intimacy practice, whether we're confident in what feels nice when we touch ourselves, how we speak to ourselves, how we show up for ourselves. I just wonder how important, yes, self intimacy, truly understanding our own desire is.
Yeah, so part of that is when, really starting to work within yourself.
Mm.
And it's almost similar to like the love language, right? If you ever heard of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Some people will have different ways of expressing their
Mhm,
intimacy and their pleasure, what they feel is, for them. For some, it's really touchy, hugging.
mhm,
Hugging, is also like, you know, part of that physical contact, with someone because there is an exchange of energy as well. Um, and so, like some people may like that, being touched in a different way. But as you get to know yourself more, you'll realize, like, oh, I really do love to have somebody touch my hair or, like, touch me in a certain way, and that's my intimacy, that's my pleasure. But it doesn't mean that you have to depend on someone else to do that. You can start with yourself too, and really just like get comfortable with the way that is best for you. And then when you really do step into, like, say, a romantic relationship, you know what you want and you know what you don't want,
yeah.
right? um, and so that is a healthy way of approaching, a relationship. um, Being able to know that going in, and then being able to express it and communicate it in the relationship as well.
Hmm.
So yeah.
So
And
what?
I mean, pleasure and intimacy can go like all different ways, right? When it also comes to purpose too, like,
Yeah.
and it's not just romantic. So,
No, 100%. And I think we've certainly since COVID, we perhaps pull back from physical contact, and there's so much
mm,
value in a hug. Fully clothed hug with somebody you know or don't know
mhm,
that well is just something about the contact with another person. Because I think we have a lot of loneliness in the world right now, and we have some people going and looking at AI as a solution, and I do feel very worried about that. Takes away the humanity from the dynamic.
the
I think
human connection.
yeah, being
Yeah.
able to hug somebody or hold somebody, or not even in a sexual way, again, it's that exchange of energy, I guess, in just the contact with
Yeah.
one another. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, not a
Yes.
question there. It's just like,
I know, no, but that's a good comment though. But it's true what you just said. Yeah, it's a good point.
so what?
Yeah.
So what's in this answer could be hours, but what's exciting you in life right now? What lights up your soul and your heart right now?
So I'm excited to really start doing more retreats and like gatherings in
Yeah.
person, which is what I'm doing next. And I'm planning a trip to go to
Mhm.
Sedona. So I'm picking more like specific locations, like sacred
Yeah.
sites, and vortex, and really doing a lot more of the grid work, with others who also feel called to it. But we need more hands on deck, to really assist with the collective energy shift that is happening right
Mhm.
now. And that includes the rebalancing of the grid system, speaking of nature, because that's all part of it,
Yeah.
as well. Because back in ancient times and civilizations, this was the norm to keep everything in balance. It's not just a one-time affair, it's like a continuous thing. I know there's so many others out there who are doing grid work, but I'm feeling more like drawn into that, so I'm feeling
Mhm.
excited about that right now.
And I think my final question, maybe the hardest one, is what is it? Is it possible to say what it feels like to be you? To
To
be you. What does it feel like to be Monica Bermudez?
Oh, what does it feel like to be
Yeah. To be the person.
anybody, or just
Well, to be the person you are with all of these, with just being so enlightened, really. What does it feel like to be so enlightened and so awake to what's out there?
it feels liberating. Like I really feel more in my sovereignty. I would say that's the word that's coming up.
Yeah, that's a good word.
It's our sovereignty. This is our true nature. To feel this, like it's almost like opening up the wings and being able to expand them. Um, and that's what it feels like, a very very strong liberation. That, yeah.
Wonderful.
So
Well, thank you so so much for your time. It's I can't wait to listen back really and to explore your website more and yeah, just to learn more about the things you talked about because it just feels like the right place for humanity to be right now. Is in that
yeah,
place.
thank you so much for having me. This was fun. I enjoyed our conversation and really great questions too.